Next week, House Democrats will be reintroducing the Green New Deal. The Green New Deal has become a symbol on both sides of the aisle. The boogeyman for the right, who furiously argues that it is detrimental to the economy, and for the left, the commitment to make bold stances against climate change. So what is the Green New Deal, and is it possible under a Biden administration? The Green New Deal is legislation proposed to combat climate change. The term Green New Deal was originally coined by Pulitzer Prize winner Thomas Friedman back in 2007. After America recorded its hottest year ever, he realized that there wasn't going to be an easy way to combat climate change. It's going to take fundamentally changing an industry that has so heavily relied on fossil fuels for energy. It would also take upsetting the current political system that relies heavily on campaign donations to thrive. Progressive politicians like Sanders, Omar, and AOC have argued against campaign donations from large corporations for various reasons, including the lack of incentive to make hard-hitting, sustainable legislation because it would mean losing money from big oil companies.
Now we're going to shock you. I'm going to say something very radical, hard to believe. The Progressive Caucus actually believes that the United States Congress should represent ordinary Americans rather than big oil companies. It's a shocking statement, I know. And we think there is something wrong when the big oil companies who have contributed tens and tens of millions of dollars to political parties and to the campaign of the President of the United States are able to get back their campaign investments 10, 20, 50 times back because of the huge profits they're currently making under the deregulated system that the president and others have pushed.
Okay guys, I'm going to be frank with you. I don't believe for a second that the Democratic Party in the United States is any less corrupt than the Republican Party. True, the Republican Party within the last decade has really gone off the deep end. They've embraced extremism, violence, voter suppression, racism, xenophobia, among a whole host of other extremely problematic ideologies. That being said though, their corruption may be more evident, but that does not mean that the Democratic Party is not walking the same exact line. Although corporate Democrats may support progressive social issues like abortion rights, inclusion of the LGBTQ community, and some green legislation, their actions just don't go far enough. They're still in bed with big corporations that influence how they govern. The BLM protest last year is an excellent example. It moved politicians in the Democratic Party to make performative stances for the cause, but they ended up increasing the budget for many police programs anyway. So, what does this have to do with the Green New Deal? Something I discuss very frequently on this platform is that everything is interconnected. If we want to see how politicians will address new legislation, we have to look back at how they addressed previous legislation. The Green New Deal was originally proposed by Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Senator Edward J. Markey, which calls for the United States to wean off of reliance on fossil fuels and curb greenhouse gas emissions across the economy. It also intends to create more high-paying jobs in the renewable energy sector. It is market-driven and aims to address economic inequality, racial injustice. Don't be confused though, the Green New Deal itself does not have any policy proposals. Many nonprofit organizations and even the Green Party itself has its own list of proposals. What the Green New Deal does argue, however, is that if global temperatures continue to rise, it will not only have calamitous effects on the entire planet, but the United States will also lose billions of dollars by the end of the century. This is because of things like increasing storms and wildfires that require a lot of resources to fix. Not to mention the supply of clean water and access to clean air will become increasingly difficult if we stay on this trajectory. Climate change just can't be separated from deteriorating ecosystems, limited water supply, energy insecurity, and worsening poverty. So I know it's hard to believe, but Joe Biden is actually the most progressive president that we've ever elected, even more so than Barack Obama. The reason might not be because Biden actually believes in the progressive policies, but rather that the country demanded that our elected leaders embrace progressive ideas. This ideology went even further embraced with the rise of Trumpism, showing the uglier colors of our nation, in addition to the pandemic that exposed all of the cracks within our system. That being said, though, what is the future of the Green New Deal under a Biden administration? Well, during the presidential debates in October of last year, Biden went on national television and stated that he does not support the Green New Deal.
The Green New Deal will pay for itself as we move forward. We're not going to build plants that, in fact, are great polluting plants.
So do you
We're going to
support
build
the Green New Deal?
Pardon me?
You support that?
No, I don't support the Green New Deal.
You don't? Oh, well, that's a big statement.
I support
that means you
the
just
Biden.
lost the radical left.
I support the
don't?
Biden plan.
This new infrastructure plan was recently released several weeks ago, and although it is a step in the right direction, groups like the Sunrise Movement, which is an American-led organization that advocates for political action against climate change, have stated, and I quote here, "Though it won't solve the climate crisis on its own, if we fight to make it stronger and pass it into law, President Biden's infrastructure plan package, can be step one in our fight for a Green New Deal." I will like to acknowledge, though, that about 40% of spending in this bill is targeted to help communities most at risk for climate change, and that is a huge change in conversation that we've previously had. But this is the part that really frustrates me. So if you remember during the presidential primaries, Senator Sanders kept trying to push Vice President Biden to accept Medicare for all. 70% of voters have stated that they support Medicare for all. It is legislation that is desperately needed as our healthcare system becomes more and more skewed in favor of the elite class. But Biden, while acknowledging that there is a problem in the healthcare industry, has also gone on record saying he will veto Medicare for all should it come on his desk.
Flash forward, your president, Bernie Sanders, is still active in the Senate. He manages to get Medicare for all through the Senate in some compromised version, the Elizabeth Warren version or other version. Nancy Pelosi gets a version of it through the House of Representatives. It comes to your desk. Do you veto it?
I would veto anything that delays providing the security and the certainty of health care being available now. If they got that through and by some miracle, and there was an epiphany that occurred, and some miracle occurred that said, okay, it's passed, then you got to look at the cost. I want to know, how did they find the $35 trillion?
Instead, he proposed expanding the ACA, giving people to opt into a public option while still retaining the private sector. It seems like bold climate action will suffer the same fate. Corporate Democrats acknowledge the problem, yet pass halfway measures to fix the issue. And while Biden's plan is better than most, it just isn't enough to deal with the growing climate crisis. Biden and establishment Democrats' desire to work across the aisle with climate deniers and their loyalty to their big donors prevent them from making any substantial changes that are required to resolve this problem. As he so famously said, nothing will fundamentally change. Although I have difficulty fully trusting a political party that hasn't been really able to come through for the American people, this past year has shown us what active political engagement can achieve. Despite the Republican Party's attempts of voter suppression in the last election, voters turned out in record numbers due in large part to active community involvement. Not only that, but with social media and independent news platforms on the rise, it has become easier to hold I don't know why I can't say that word today. So easier to hold politicians accountable for the things they say and do. There are now 91 progressive representatives in the United States Congress, the most we have ever had. They can push their centrist counterparts to adopt more progressive policies and take accountability for their voting history. So this isn't me saying Biden needs to adopt every single piece of legislation that the progressives offer. That's obviously not how politics works. But there needs to be a genuine effort to understand the gravity of the problems this country, and in the case of climate change, the world is facing. The Green New Deal changed how the conversation about climate change was being had. It became a symbol of what is necessary to combat the next impending disaster. So in conclusion, will Joe Biden's administration adopt the Green New Deal at this time? Probably not. But if we continue with the same momentum we had during the election, we do have the possibility of pushing him to embrace stronger and bolder climate policies. Policies that we just do not have the luxury to avoid. Hey everyone, thank you for watching this latest installment of Earth's Narrative. If you like this content and want to keep up with the environmental news of the world, don't forget to subscribe. You can also follow me on Instagram, where I update you on things happening around the world and how we can be more politically active for the planet. I post new videos every Monday and Wednesday, and I will see you next time. Bye!